In 1986, a Soviet pilot locked his radar onto an aircraft flying at Mach 3, a plane the United States called unstoppable, the SR-71 Blackbird. No fighter on Earth could touch it. No missile could catch it. That's what the Americans believed, until the Soviets built a machine specifically to kill the Blackbird. Today, we're breaking down the MiG-31 Foxhound, the only aircraft ever built with one job: hunt down the fastest plane in history. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how close it came to doing it. Section 1. The problem: why the Blackbird was uncatchable. To understand why the MiG-31 mattered, you have to understand what the Soviets were up against. The SR-71 Blackbird cruised at Mach 3.2 over 2,200 miles per hour at altitudes above 85,000 feet. That's nearly 3 times higher than commercial airliners fly. When Soviet radar picked up a Blackbird, standard interceptors like the MiG-25 simply couldn't react in time. By the moment a fighter got airborne, the SR-71 had already crossed the border, taken its photographs, and was halfway home. Even when MiG-25s did manage to scramble, the Blackbird would simply accelerate away, its titanium skin glowing from friction heat as it outran every missile fired at it. The Soviets tried. Between the 1960s and 1980s, there is no confirmed record of any SR-71 ever being shot down, despite thousands of intercept attempts and missile launches. The Blackbird flew reconnaissance missions over Soviet territory, the Middle East, and North Korea with near total impunity. This wasn't just a military embarrassment, it was a strategic crisis. The Blackbird could photograph missile silos, troop movements, and naval fleets, and there was nothing the They needed a plane that didn't just fly fast. They needed a plane that could predict, track, and box in an aircraft moving nearly a kilometer every second. Section 2. The answer: engineering the Foxhound. Enter the MiG-31 Foxhound, first flown in 1975 and entering service in 1981. This wasn't a fighter jet in the traditional sense. It was a missile platform designed around one mission: long-range, high-speed interception. The Foxhound could reach speeds of Mach 2.83, not quite as fast as the Blackbird. But that's where the genius of the design comes in. The Soviets realized they didn't need to outfly the SR-71. They needed to outthink it. The MiG-31 was the first fighter in the world equipped with a phased array radar, the Zaslon system capable of tracking 10 targets simultaneously at ranges up to 200 kilometers. That's a staggering number even by today's standards. This radar let the Foxhound detect a Blackbird-sized target long before the SR-71's crew even knew they were being hunted. But radar alone wasn't enough. The real innovation was teamwork. MiG-31s operated in groups of 4, linked together through a secure data link system, covering a combined frontage of nearly 900 kilometers. One aircraft could detect a target and instantly share that data with the other 3, meaning the Blackbird couldn't simply outrun one interceptor because 4 of them were already positioning to box it in from different angles. Then there was the weapon built specifically for this job, the R-33 long-range missile. With a range of over 160 kilometers and a speed exceeding Mach 4.5, the R-33 was designed to be launched before the target aircraft even entered visual range, closing the gap on something moving at Mach 3 before it had time to react. This is the piece most people miss. The MiG-31 didn't need to physically catch the SR-71. It needed to get within missile range, and with a radar that saw hundreds of kilometers out and a missile that flew faster than the target itself, that gap became survivable math for the first time. Section 3. Did it ever happen? So here's the question everyone asks. Did a MiG-31 ever actually intercept an SR-71? There's no publicly confirmed combat engagement. The Blackbird was retired in 1998, and no missile was ever fired at one by a Foxhound in verified combat. But there are documented cases of successful radar locks and close intercepts, particularly over the Barents Sea and near Soviet borders, where MiG-31s were repeatedly vectored toward inbound Blackbird flights. Former SR-71 pilots have spoken about changing tactics, specifically because of the Foxhound's presence altering flight paths to avoid ever presenting a clean intercept geometry to Soviet radar. That alone tells you something. The fastest plane in history was adjusting its behavior because of a jet many people have never even heard of. Even more telling, the US accelerated its retirement plans for the SR-71 inches part because satellite reconnaissance was becoming more viable, but declassified assessments from the era also acknowledged that Soviet air defense with the MiG-31 as its centerpiece had made Blackbird missions significantly riskier than they'd been in the 1960s, 70s. So while there's no gun camera footage of a kill, the MiG-31 achieved something arguably more important. It made the untouchable aircraft touchable. It turned a one-sided intelligence war into a genuine contest. Section 4. The Legacy. Here's what makes this story remarkable. The MiG-31 is still flying today. Over 500 Foxhounds remain in service with the Russian Air Force, decades after the Blackbird was pulled from active duty and put in museums. Modern MiG-31 variants, like the MiG-31BM, have been upgraded with new radar, avionics, and weapons. And this same airframe has since been adapted to carry the Kinzhal hypersonic missile, launched from high altitude at supersonic speed to give the weapon extra range and velocity. The exact same principles that made it a Blackbird hunter in 1981: speed, altitude, and a devastating first shot radar are still being used today in a completely different kind of mission. The Blackbird was retired as the undefeated champion on paper. No confirmed shootdowns, no confirmed losses. But the MiG-31 proved something just as important in the history of air combat. You don't always beat an impossible aircraft by building something faster. Sometimes you beat it by building something smarter, a jet that sees first, talks to its wingmen, and fires before the enemy even knows the fight has started. And that's a lesson the world's air forces are still applying to this day.